So what were you doing at that point in the early 60s? Was that when you were driving the beer truck, Falstaff, and working at General Wholesale, or what was your job at that time?
1965, I was working at General Wholesale, and Bo Buford called. Well, actually, it was Joe Good's idea because he liked me, and I had worked some before for People's Vacation, so he suggested that I get opening on Saturdays and Sundays. And I liked opening on Sunday because the first hour was overtime, because in the beginning theaters couldn't open till 2 o'clock to make sure that church was all the way out.
Right.
So a little paper on the wall I'd write each week. 1 hour overtime, first hour.
Yeah. Where was that at? Where did you start?
Imperial.
At the Imperial.
And I remember I kind of got sick of watching it, and you got to watch it during the changeover. We ran the professionals. Lee Marvin.
Lee Marvin, Woody Strode, Robert Ryan, Claudia Cardinale.
Burt Lancaster. And then once they got back, they turned around and let her go. And Ralph Bellamy said, "Well, you son of a gun." Lee Morgan said, "Well, with me, it was from an accident at birth, but you're a self-made man."
We both made a bad deal, Mr. Grant. You lose a wife, and we lose $10,000 apiece.
You bastard. Yes, sir. In my case, an accident at birth. But you, sir, you're a self-made man.
Right. So you were working at the Imperial initially as a relief operator, right? When did you join the union?
A lot longer. I was taken into the union on July the 4th, 1967. And the manager at the Wise Drive-In become disenchanted with his operator, so all the other drive-in operators said, well, if they kicked him out, then I gotta have a job. So nobody would take it but me. And I trained for 1 week, and then with Cooper's boy. And Cooper was gone, and I was there 6 days a week.
Yeah. So you were the full-time operator at the Wise.
And they ran this first feature all the way over. So I got at least 2 hours overtime every night.
All right.
And at one point in time, I hired a manager, and he was really upset because he was the manager, but yet I made more than he did. So he came up one night and said, "Teach me how to run these things. There ain't no need both of us having to stay here." Meaning he wanted to get that overtime, but I said, no, ain't gonna happen.
All right. So you worked some at the Imperial to start with before you became a full-time member at the Imperial, but did you work any other indoor houses along Broad Street and on.
Yep. Worked vacations at the Miller. And everybody went in July, so I could open the Miller, get off, and in the summertime, it didn't get dark till 8 o'clock. And then after daylight savings time, it didn't get dark till 9 o'clock. So I could go home, take a nap, eat, and then go to the drive-in. So I was double dipping. And with the old time.
With an indoor house in the daytime, drive-ins at night.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
In Majestica. Rialto, of course, had already closed, so that was the Majestica, the Miller, the Imperial, and the weatherman, Gordon Smith. He was offered a job at the Majestica, so they ran sort of risque movies, so Gordon said it's against my morals, so he would never work there.
Yeah. Did you ever work Joe Good's Cinema One?
Nope. Only ever was able to get myself in and any other friends that wanted to get in.
Yeah.
We could get them in.
Yeah.
They were mostly girls that husbands
Yeah.
worked at Homestead Draperies.
Yeah. So,
He opened in '67.
who were some of the doormen you worked with, in like at the Imperial? People that
The Imperial, there was Albert Harmonis. He had no accent. He was the head doorman. Okay. He had a brother named Ramon, and he still spoke with an accent. And I asked him, I said, you both came to America at the same time. Why does he not have the accent, but you do? Gets me girls. Pretty well wraps it up.
yeah.
And then he married Griffin's daughter, and she pretty well wrapped it up when one morning she got the key from her daddy, and he was having a little tete-a-tete in the booth at the South Gate. So then she made out his train ticket. I don't know if he ever got married again or not. And another thing, on the side, he could grow the most beautiful roses. And he did landscaping. And after he wasn't in the union anymore, he made a good living doing landscaping and keeping up the grounds at banks and hotels, motels, maintaining those big plants like they used to have in the lobbies. They had one at National Hills, ABC. I used to water the plant, dust it off. The first thing Kurt Harris did, he gave it away to the guy at Schwartz restaurant.
So
He also, they had two little sofas with no backs, and the doorman, assistant managers, and whatever would sit there when there was no tickets to be. They'd get up when they saw a ticket coming.
yeah.
That was the first thing that went.
Yeah.
And the first day he said, we're going to open a little late because he had to bring his candy, and then that candy had to be transferred to Columbia Square. And then they bought them, and then Joe Good said, and then they said, well, we got screwed. Because Columbia Square never did the potential that ABC thought it was going to do.
Yeah.
It just didn't do it. And I mean, it was in a prime location, right where it split. This was Hereford Dairy Road, and this was Washington Road.
Yeah.
And it just didn't do it. And the first night, the movie was Nickelodeon.
Yep.
And they let everybody in for a nickel.
Yep. Yep. I remember that. We were there.
Tatum O'Neal and Ryan O'Neal.
Yeah.
And it was always a twin. Had different water fountains. They had different size of the concession stands at the end so that people couldn't switch and get to see two movies. That's what Brenda McCaslin always hated. She'd put guys in the hall and try to catching two movies for one.
Jumping over. Yep.
And then Ramon's son said when it started to being fun to catch them, it didn't work anymore, at least not for me.
Yeah.
You know, he said I hated to catch them.
So, at the Imperial, that's where you met Mike Rogers for the first time, your buddy Mike Rogers. He was a doorman, right?
No, he was at National Hills, and we had the Kelly Pepsi
Buddy Club.
And it was so crowded, it always sold out, so to speak. And the revenue the theater got, of course, was concessions. But I came down the steps after the movie was over because it was 2 hours before the 1 o'clock opening. So he was down there sweeping up popcorn off the lobby floor. And I came down and he said, "You're the projectionist." And he was all excited. And that's how we hooked up, so to speak. And then you had all the rest of the gang. There was Lewis Robinson, Jim Neely, Tommy Capers, and Gary Cloud, John Mackey, who married a girl from the pit office that did the booking.
Yeah.
And he still lives in Charlotte, and they're still married. And he makes wicker furniture and goes to a flea market once a week and makes a living.
What were some of the big movies that you ran at the Imperial? 1973, you had a controversial movie where they had lines around the block and picketers. What was that?
The Exorcist. They picketed around the monument, and they were all dressed in white like the Ku Klux, and they all had candles. And one guy went up and down the aisle, and he told the guy, said, if you watch this movie, you're going straight to hell. He said, if you don't get out of my face, you're going straight to hell right now.
What was the longest running movie at the Imperial? 75.
Jaws. $257 times and still had 5 more days to go.
Yeah.
Up to 257 times, 3 times a day, which added to it. And you broke it down into how many feet, how many hours, how many minutes, how many seconds. And then it said, have you seen it? And then had my picture in the air.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ran for about 16, 17 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Normal run was, what, 1 to 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except that time when I was released, and the professional ran for 4 weeks.
What about late shows? What were some of your favorite late shows that you ran?
Mad Dogs and Englishmen. Had the balcony open. This girl came up and she said, cut it up, man. We love it loud. And you could hear it all the way over to Reynolds Street. And I always joke when we had an earthquake, that one of the speakers was right over Snappy's, so then the girls didn't have to turn to burgers. It was flipped on themselves because there was 21 minutes of constant vibration, and a lot of the ceiling fell down too.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a sense-around movie, wasn't it?
Yep.
We also, you also ran Midway in sense-around.
I sure did. On the 4th of July, and we had a 1-minute Star Spangled Banner. And Jim Davis on the news said, everybody stood up, put their hands over their hearts, and they ran Midway. And boy, when those planes landed, the realism and the noise, and of course, taking off.
Yeah, the opening of the movie with the titles and everything was the engines firing up on the aircraft carrier getting ready to go.
Yep.
It was pretty loud.
So it was just like being there.
Yeah.
And then they had cameras mounted on one of the jets, and it would just come right on down with all the noise and the visual of that guy. And you could hear the change stopping it. So it
The
was,
tail hook. Yeah.
that's probably the most realistic movie I ever ran.
You used to have an occasional famous guest in the balcony. Who was that?
The Godfather, Mr. James Brown. And he was there the last night it closed, September 21st, 1982.
Yep.
Ray Hutto was there. Got his autograph on a card. Ray said, he signed it. God bless.
Yeah.
Good old Ray.
All right. I remember when I was a teenager going to the Imperial. There was a manager, Jerry Tenney, and a nice little old lady named Margaret, who you knew well before the Imperial. Where did you meet Margaret?
Met Margaret at the Rialto, where the candy was a dime, Coke was a dime, popcorn was a dime, and a dime to get in for a double feature. Grown folks, a quarter.
Yeah.
And when we got the custodian for all the Georgia theaters to get us into Miller. And we took certain items out because it never was going to reopen. And Ray got an old ledger, handwritten, and the Rialto was doing like at a dime and a quarter, $2,000 a week. Now that's a lot of filled seats. And the screen had holes in them, so I always thought it was good. I always sat right in the middle on the front row because I wanted to see those holes. It took me a long time to realize that the speaker was behind and therefore it came straight out.
Yeah.
So a lot of good. Nowadays they call them serials, but back then they were called chapter plays because there were 12. Some of them were actually 15.
Yeah. It kept you coming back each week, right? You only got about 15 minutes each time, or 10 minutes each time?
They ran about 17 minutes, but the first chapter was always 2 reels to get it fully locked in, and then some people also right now call them cliffhangers because the car would start over, but then the next one, then by some miracle, like some claws picked it back up. It didn't go over, even though it was 3/4 of the way over.
Yeah.
Or a person, or a monster after them.
All right. So after the Rialto, Margaret moved. She moved down to the Imperial, basically doing the same job.
Right. It was when she moved down there was a manager prior to Jerry Tenney. There was a James Tenney that got moved to Columbia office.
All right.
Assistant to the whole southeastern manager. Huff was in there.
All right. All right. That wraps up that. Now, when we left off, we were talking about the theaters and the movie business, and you had a lot of young kids that worked there that started, as young teenagers.
Right.
And there were some budding high school romances and things. Johnny Arena met his wife, Kathy. Later on, Mike Rogers met his wife, Rochelle.
Right.
And Mark, your firstborn son, met his wife, Kathy, who sold tickets out front, and Mark was a doorman.
Right.
So,
Mark, #1 son, actually, I had asked for him to have a job before, but would you believe the amount of people coming in for the Exorcist that he had to have somebody to stand there so that they wouldn't be able to just get on past. So Mark's only job was just to stand there and of course tinny toward the tickets to make sure that there were no hanky-panky. So that was the dawning of his career. And then later on, when Harry McKenna wasn't able anymore because of his emphysema, then Mark became the relief operator on Saturdays and Sundays. And that was his start. And then Johnny Arena managed National Hills, assistant manager, National Hills, and at Columbia Square, his future wife was a possession girl. And then when Mike left ABC and was assistant manager at the Regency 3, he met Rochelle, who later became Mrs. Mike Rogers.
All right. Wasn't there a fire when Mark was working, something to do with popcorn one night? Wasn't there a fire back in the popcorn machine or something?
Mm-hmm. Actually, it wasn't Mark. It was a guy named Stan, and he came up there and he said, "Mr. Barkley," said, "it's the fire caught on fire and now it's going out the fan." Said, "What should I do?" I said, "Well, let me tell you this. Why don't you call the fire department?" "Good idea." He went down. Then he called the fire department, and till everything got fixed, I got paid and didn't have to work for 3 days because we were guaranteed 30 hours a week. So if you didn't work them, you got it anyway.